Indubitably, there are shapeshifters that are in the spiritual domain that are demons, and they act in the regard of only their own interests. And they simply seek to destroy what God sees as good. And although you will be protected by God, you might be tried and you might be in a position where God is allowing spiritual attacks to happen, because if you read the book of Job, for example, it seems as though the devil himself, even though he makes a bet with God, he has to ask permission from God to attack Job. So, in a sense, God is waging his bets, so to speak. Not that God gambles, but God is waging his bets on you, which is pretty encouraging, actually, when you think about it. But there's going to be lustful spirits that are going to be attacking you more so when you are really doing things right on this path. And especially if you're celibate and you're consciously making the effort and the choice to wait to have kids or even be in a relationship until you're knowing that this is the person that you want to be with. And you don't want to have any kind of intimacy until that point in which you feel both between you guys that you're going to actually commit to having children and making a family. You're not participating in those degenerative acts, because fornication and adultery, it cannot be underestimated how serious it is. And I'm even getting to the point now to where I was thinking about the types of jobs that my woman could have down the line, that if she wanted to work, what would she be doing exactly? I'll tell you one thing. She will not be a masseuse or a personal trainer or a hairdresser or anything like that, because I don't want her touching other dudes all day, because that's pretty much like my property. And yes, I know some women are going to be triggered by this, and maybe even some men by this. My property being touched and whatever all day long. I don't need that. I don't want to even think about that. I want my woman to be my woman. And people will say that, well, your property? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, I am the one responsible for her. It's kind of like, I wouldn't want someone touching my kids all day, and my kids are going to be my kids. And I think a good woman, if she's actually a good woman, is, and she's in a relationship with a good man, the good man is going to see that woman, even though she is his lover and the mother of his kids, she's going to act kind of as a daughter to the man in some way and in some regard. And I think that that's an appropriate way to view it, because that's exactly how biblically it plays out. But the more that you stabilize yourself, the more that you see that there is a sense of proclivity in the administration of purity and the administration of less friction in your relationships. Because I think one of the reasons why clear communication is so important is that you alleviate friction. And you'll notice that with a lot of toxic people, the friction that is there is just very adamant, and it's very pertinent and in your face. You can clearly see that there's tension. You can clearly see that they're talking past each other. And that's not healthy for anybody involved. And so when you're actually in a healthy relationship, the devil will, or when you're striving to be in a healthy relationship, and just when you're celibate in general, the devil will send agents your way in dreams, because that's really the most vulnerable place that you can be taken advantage of. Because if the devil can't get you in the physical, you best believe the spiritual realm is going to be where it's going to happen. And the only way that that's going to be pertinent for any change on the devil to influence you anyway is going to be in the dream world. Now, I call the dream world, but I call the mystical beyond something that is beyond the dream world. it's not quite completely unconscious, but it's a conscious totality of the merging of consciousness and unconsciousness. And so I have something that I want to describe to you guys from my book here, the Book of Oldishness. And it's regarding lust. And it says, in a cave, beaten spiritually, and among demons, such is the path where lust leads you toward. Many may be convinced by demons that the destination of lust is like an oasis of sexual excitement, but there are no beauties or holiness in the oasis of sexual excitement, for it is a mirage which steals the cognitive faculties of those under its spell. So lust is in many ways a love spell, depending on how you view it. And you can be gotten by love spells, even if you are a very discerning individual. And I know this because I've experienced this, and I've seen godly men who are very discerning experience these love spells where they just don't act like themselves and they don't know why they're doing certain things. And it's only when they're able to see that they've been caught up into a manipulation that doesn't even look like a manipulation. Because what the devil does, there's spiritual laws that are in place where, as you see in the book of Job, the devil has to tell God what he's going to do. And then God has to say, okay, because nothing's going to happen in this world unless God allows it to happen. And you might think to yourself, okay, well, what about all of the kids with cancer? Or what about all of the unnecessary death? Or what about the Old Testament and where things like, well, okay, in this world, free agency, free will is a thing. And this is what a lot of atheists cannot handle. This is what a lot of New Agers cannot handle. They want to live in the land of eating butterflies and pooping lollipops. And they don't want to confront the sincerity of living with free will. Because in order to have free will, there has to be the possibility of evil. And if God had stopped every form of evil, well, then what kind of world would that really look like? Because in that world, you'd be forced to do good. And it's a much more higher spiritual attainment to choose to do good when you know you could do bad or evil per se. Let's keep it with those extreme polarities there. So going back to my book here for a second, it is a mirage which steals. Lust is a mirage which steals the cognitive faculties of those under its spell. So lust will rob you of your own capability to discern. It'll rob you of your ability to recognize patterns, because that's what discernment is, right? Discernment is the discerning of patterns. It is the acknowledgement of patterns. And so the more in tune you are with recognizing these patterns, the easier it's going to be to recognize what's actually going on. Okay, for example, do I want to bring up this example? I'm just going to go for it. So if you look at Laura Trump's most recent Christmas giveaway or whatever, okay, now look, it's no secret that I don't really trust Trump. I think he's done a few good things, sure, and I acknowledge that he speaks some truth, but Andrew Tate also speaks some truth. And I'm not necessarily comparing Andrew Tate and Trump. I'm just saying that there are people that speak the truth, but I don't think you ought to live like them. Okay, I don't think that it would be a holy endeavor to live like those people. I don't think the way in which they're trying to do things is appropriate. I think they are, in Tantra, anybody that's familiar with Tantra, there's the white path and then the black path. And obviously the black path is more where you focus on like the dark side of the force kind of a thing. I think Donald Trump and Andrew Tate, for example, are masters of the art of war. They are masters of strategy. But are they doing it for the right reasons? I'm not so sure. So with that being said, now with Laura Trump, you look and she's got an all red, skin tight, you know, yoga pants with basically a bra going on with her sports bra. And this woman, this Laura Trump, okay, she's a fit woman, don't get me wrong, and she obviously takes care of her body. But here we have again conservative women, tradcon women, casually sucking in these men that are in the cuck army, who are depleted coomers and do not see the facade for what it truly is. If you saw that, but with like AOC, okay, think about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing that kind of a commercial for Christmas or whatever. Come on now. Like, you would say, all the conservatives would say certain things about AOC because this is a political figure, even though Laura Trump isn't technically in politics, right? Like, so maybe it's not a fair comparison, right? But still, and I understand, like, I'm not trying to critique just to critique here, but this is the lustful ways in which they know what they're doing, gentlemen. Okay, they know what they're doing, ladies. They know what they're doing, and they're doing it well. They're acting in certain ways and claiming to follow Jesus and all these things, and I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. I don't think that you can act in those kinds of ways. And especially promoting Christmas and talking about like Jesus's birth while posing in an all red. Come on now. Because it's a Laura Trump thing and all that. But this is just an example of how you can see the lustful spirit circulating itself in the consciousness and the collective consciousness. And it's ever so subtle with the NPCs. Now, for a lot of you guys that watch this channel, you might not even know about this, okay? And this might be the first time you're hearing about it, which honestly I think would be a good thing. But again, it appears to be like an oasis, right? This is how I describe it in my book. It's an oasis of sexual excitement without really seeming to be so. But in reality, it's a mirage which steals the cognitive faculties of those under its spell. I genuinely believe that a lot of these women out here, moving away from Laura Trump, a lot of these women out here are acting out certain spells and casting spells on a lot of men, and they don't even realize like that's what they're doing. They don't realize that they're actually practicing witchcraft, because witchcraft, mediums, warlocks, these are all real phenomenon, okay? But that doesn't mean that they're right. That doesn't mean that they're godly. They are spiritual forms of understanding the spiritual domain, but is it walking in truth and spirit? Okay, because the Bible says those that truly worship God worship in spirit and truth, according to John 4:24. So, which is it's probably actually my favorite scripture, because it just encapsulates the whole entire truth and just super easy. Anybody can understand that. And it alleviates any tension between religion. It's the spirit and it's the truth, and you'll know it. And that's how you know. But I think that with the dreams, we have to recognize that you, being the spiritual celebrity that you are, if you're actually practicing this stuff and you actually know about these things, you're going to be targeted in your dreams by the devil. It's just simply a fact. And I had a dream last night. It wasn't exactly lustful, but it was sensual in nature. And in the dream, I had people from my past, and they were basically all telling me in this house about how I'm not helping anybody the way that I think I am, and I'm not doing that, and I'm doing this, like, who the hell do you think you are, kind of a thing. And it started to get to me in the dream. I started to actually have a little bit of doubt, and I was thinking to myself, wow, maybe they're right in the dream. And then there was this woman. I walked upstairs, and there was this woman who came over, and she was like this older woman, but again, very sensual in nature. Not like seductive, but it was like a lustful kind of energy. And she told me, she said something along the lines of how I am greater than God and I'm supposed to be more worshiped because I'm more than what God could be. And I immediately was like, no, this isn't right. This isn't what's going on. No. And I immediately let go of any doubt that I had, and I woke up and it was a nocturnal emission. And anybody that is on semen retention or celibacy knows that sometimes you're going to have nocturnal emissions because, well, these are, again, spiritual attacks usually. And if you want to know more about these kinds of spiritual attacks and sex dreams and such, I have done videos on that. You can check my archives. But more so, the most important thing and the most important aspect to learn about is that when you're seeing these attacks, it means that you're doing something right. Now, what are you doing right? That's something that you need to figure out. But you also don't need to delude yourself either, okay? Because sometimes these dreams are pathological. Sometimes you're not being attacked by these lustful demons. You are being controlled by them, and you want to feed them because they need to feed off of you. These demons have been feeding off of you, and you're addicted to feeding them, even though you don't know you're addicted. And so you might psych yourself into believing that you're doing something right when in reality you're just feeding the demons even more. So again, have discernment, recognize that where there is truth, there is usually some kind of form of paradox. And I hope that with all that being said, this message was useful and insightful for you. Join the Regal Change Academy that we have going on for free. You can enroll for free, but the paywall is going to happen when you want to join the group calls or the classes. And I also have the Godlike Master Initiation program as well, and then a one-on-one mentorship call if you want to go into more details about this kind of stuff. You know, Jungian psychology and spirituality, deep dreams, alchemy. These are the kinds of topics that I'm the go-to guy in this niche that's just going to give you the raw truth. I'm not trying to, like, of course I have a business, but I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm letting you know what I've got available for you because I want to help people, because I know that I would have benefited from these things that I offer now 5-10 years ago when I was going through things. So I want to be able to make sure that these people like yourself have the opportunity, because if you're a depleted coomer, you're going to need some help. Okay, and I help depleted coomers. So with all that being said, peace be with you. Until next time.